Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello, g'day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening to around the world. Welcome to Starbase Weekly, episode 138. And we've got another awesome flyover this week with some nice clear weather and some awesome clear images. We've got a couple of guests with us today. We've got Ryan Hansen. G'day, Ryan.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting flyover. Still kind of excited from the last flight, and the gear up for Flight 6 is in full speed, so we've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today.
And we've got Alex as well. G'day, Alex.
Good morning, everybody. It should be a great show as well. Can't wait.
And over on questions and donations, we've got Lawrence. Hello, Lawrence.
Hello, everybody, and yeah, definitely appreciate all y'all's questions and support, so go ahead and roll them in whenever you want to.
Okay, we're going to start this morning and we're going to hear from Mauricio. Mauricio is going to talk a bit about flying, and a little issue has been arising with the flying. So I'll let Mauricio take over for a minute and we'll hear from him.
Hey everyone, it's been a while. Haven't been on here for the longest time here, but I felt like it was necessary to jump on just to give my personal experience about what it's like to be up there and some of the issues we've been encountering lately. So one of the main issues is the oxygen, being deprived of oxygen. The higher you go, the less oxygen there is in the at those altitudes. So, and being that we're using a Cessna 150 at the moment, that takes way too long just to get at those altitudes. So that means that we're exposed to less oxygen. So one of the first symptoms that, we've been noticing it lately in the past few flights more than before is being exhausted during the flight, after the flight, including me and the pilot. And in my case, I felt sluggish. Just this morning, I woke up I felt like I was hungover. I don't know if that makes any sense. But it just felt like with a major headache. And and just the lack of wanting to talk up there. You just felt really sleepy up there. But being that, we get up to the altitude, I'm a little bit more active while taking the photos. So and then that kind of goes away during the flight. We go down to altitude, and it's just long story short, it's just uncomfortable to be doing this without oxygen. I think oxygen will help us out. Stephanie just pulled up one of what we have in mind on what can help us out in this situation. This is what the aviation community or some pilots use whenever they don't have pressurized aircraft or oxygen supply. This is just something that's portable. It's a tank, and this would fit perfectly for me and the pilot. So we would appreciate it. I can post a link here for the PayPal link that we can make available. All the funds will go towards that. We will show proof and purchase it, and any additional funds will go towards our SD cards are pretty much over a year old. They're pretty much deteriorating. Hard drives, anything else will go towards that. So, and well, thank you so much, Matt. I feel like Matt just dropped a $500 super chat. Is that correct, Stephanie, or am I seeing things?
Yeah, wow, it's amazing. Unbelievable.
And so, yeah, wow. I mean, I thought I was seeing double here, but yeah, thank you so much. I feel like I'm speechless. Thank you so much, Matt. Oxygen fund. Let's call it that. The oxygen fund. I need oxygen up there. We need oxygen. Talk to the pilot. He agrees. And yeah, it's going to be, oxygen makes a big difference. I can tell you that much. But back to you, Stephanie. Everybody else, thank you for the support.
Well, Matt, that's just amazing, incredible. Thank you so much for words beyond words there a little bit. Thank you. That was totally unexpected. Awesome. So, I mean, everyone doesn't have to be that big a donation, of course. Every little bit helps. So thank you so much for that. I see a bit of chat about oxygen required above 15,000 feet. It's actually 10,000 feet in Australia legally. You have to have oxygen. 10,000 feet generally is around the height that hypoxia generally starts to affect people. And of course, it's different if you smoke cigarettes or if you're not as fit, or as you increase in age, that altitude decreases, obviously. So yeah, once again, Matt, wow, absolutely wow. Okay, so on with the show. First up this afternoon for you guys, we're going to address Elon's little leak on his little Diablo game there regarding the 1 second from failure thing. And I'm going to invite Ryan to run through that and make it a little bit easier for us lay people to understand. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, so I'll maybe go into that a little bit here. So Elon is doing some gaming, but not sure if he intentionally shared the audio or not. But thankfully he did share the audio, and we got to hear some pretty cool details. It doesn't seem like it's really anything ITAR related, so it's not really a concern. It's more so just some of the details that we typically we've loved to hear in the past from kind of a post-flight debrief. So really haven't gotten a whole lot of details on things since I think about Flight 1, really. So it was nice to get some information from the higher ups there at SpaceX, specifically with the booster. So maybe run through a couple of things. Majority of the call was focused on booster risk reduction. So they were talking about some of the software, that was going on kind of in the background, and some of the stuff that they got into were related to the abort criterias. As you can probably imagine, when you're bringing the booster back to the launch site, there's going to be a lot of safety precautions taken, and when you've never done this before, you're probably going to err on the side of caution. You are putting a your only usable launch site at risk when you are doing this. So they probably had a lot of values that they weren't quite sure if they were set appropriately or not. But one of them which is specifically talked about is a spin gas abort value in the flight software that was possibly set too conservatively. So this valve basically opens up, allows the spin gas to pressurize, and so there was a time span that was allowing this to build pressure. And according to the phone call, this was about 1 second away from kind of hitting its threshold where it would then trigger an abort. Elon clarified that this is roughly 50 control cycles in the computer. So 1 second sounds kind of scary to us, but for computers and how many times per second they process stuff, it probably isn't that long of a time, or it's actually much longer than you might think. But basically, what this would have done is triggered the landing burn to abort, and the trajectory that the booster was on would have actually landed near the tower, basically pencil diving into the ground, which is essentially what I described in my how to catch super heavy booster video that I put out on YouTube. So it was kind of neat to have a confirmation that that's actually what their plan was. But yeah, with Flight 6, there were hundreds of new values that they were kind of dealing with, and any one of those could have, accidentally been tripped because they didn't exactly have flight data to mold those values off of. In terms of coming back to the launch site, it's a little different than landing out in the Gulf. So any one of those values could have had a problem. And they actually considered delaying the launch a few days to pour over some of these values a little bit closer so they could refine them. They ultimately decided kind of not to do that. They kind of pushed through, which thankfully the booster was caught and everything went correctly. So they now have flight data, and they've already started comparing the flight data to the values that they had set in software. So by doing that, they can now say, okay, is this value very close to triggering an abort, or do we need to increase it or decrease it? So they have a whole bunch of data now that they can use to go back through the software and refine things a lot better. And the Flight 6 schedule is essentially being driven by this risk mitigation and going through all of the abort values specifically for the booster in software. So that's the software related stuff. They also mentioned a little bit about the Chine skin that ripped off, right at the kind of start at the landing burn. It had already kind of come off a little bit during the glide, but then it ripped off right when the landing burn started. And they were concerned about these spot welds like well before launch, but they weren't sure, I guess, where it could fail. So it sounds like something that they've tried to maybe correct with later boosters. So it sounds like there's a fix in the works for Booster 13 already. We might have to maybe keep a closer look at Booster 13 to see if it has some differences. But the part that actually ripped off on Booster 12 during the landing burn was right above some of the what they're calling the single point failure valves. So these are valves that they aren't really in parallel. So if one of them, if it fails, it's not going to do its job and there's no backup. So these valves could be related for spin up gas or the ullage gas during the landing burn. Not entirely sure, that wasn't elaborated on. But it was kind of hinted right at the end of the video before it cuts off that the Chine skin failure could have been due to the Plume from the Center 3 engines as they ignite. They're actually, the booster's still traveling supersonic. So the Plume kind of creeps up the side of the video, and you can see this in a lot of the videos from the last launch, but it's possible it could be related to that, but the video, it stops there and we don't get any more information. So That's pretty much all of the content from that video from Elon.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan, for that. Okay, let's jump over to Massey's. Lawrence, when you do donations, just go to Patreon Lands too, please. Okay, we'll start with Flight 5 with the hot stage ring here. Very interesting. They recovered the hot stage ring, and it sure took a beating when it hit the water there. Just before we go any further, Ryan was kind enough to give us this image. This is the orientation that we believe it hit the water. So it's upside down, basically. And the actual water, the impact of the water, basically, what they call it, hydroformed it a little bit. So it possibly hit this side first. It's a bit hard to tell. Maybe it wasn't quite flat when it hit. It seems to be. Now, I'm not sure if that's twisted or not. Maybe it's just that pipe is making it look like it's twisted. That's the LOX engine chill line, as far as I remember.
Yeah, it appears that when it hit the water, it obviously deformed the frame that's under the dome or the blast surface there. So when it deforms that, it's probably going to push the more diagonal beams outward, and so that probably then pushed the kind of the whole bottom of the hot staging ring kind of out. So you can actually kind of see how it's even just from one side to the other. It looks like the base of it is actually wider than the top part. And then the top part could also be collapsed in. There's a couple places where it looks like it's broken. But overall, it's very deformed, but it's still relatively, the way that it should be, which is kind of surprising. I've heard some numbers that range between, I think it was roughly like maybe 100 miles an hour is, how quickly it hit the water, which should be, was that like 45 kilometers per hour or something like that? So I've heard a number of different values just from people looking at the videos, because we do have a video showing the impact. But doing some pixel math, you can get a rough idea of how quickly it was moving. But I think it was roughly about 100 miles per hour.
You can actually see the framework through the steel plating here from underneath. So yeah, it hit hard, it hit fairly hard, and like 100 mile an hour water is basically concrete.
Yeah,
It's
water
a
is not
misnomer,
compressible.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, it's viscosity. It's kind of a misnomer, but close enough for. It's quite hard.
Very good. There was reports there was a sonic boom after somewhere while it was flying, so perhaps at altitude it was supersonic on its way down. I'm not sure about that either. Apparently there was some sonic booms heard.
Definitely would have been supersonic for a large portion of its descent.
Other than that, there's not a lot of change here in this little area. Last week they'd gotten rid of engines, which we think have gone over to McGregor's. You can see a heap more of the shielding and so on in those scrap heaps. So I guess over the next few weeks we'll see this all get scrapped. I'm not sure they got any actual information out of these articles, or whether they just recover them for ITAR. There's still bits and pieces missing, obviously, like the landing tank. So there's bits and pieces still strewn all over the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, they seem to take all the engines back to McGregor, so
I'm wondering what sort of testing they're going to do there, or whether it's something to do with whether they disassemble them over there. It's easy to disassemble them over there, or whether they're actually going to do some testing. Not quite sure.
They probably want to do some sort of inspections. Even after the engines are underwater for that long, there's possibly still some data that you can glean from, the internals. You can maybe see how all the impellers and turbines held up. even though there's going to be some corrosion in there. But yeah, it seems like they kind of do a similar thing with the Raptors. They kind of chop them up into some sections and then they ship them out. So it's kind of similar to what we have seen with Booster 4's engines. So I'm sure there's some sort of a process they go through to destroy them as well, so they don't get into the wrong hands.
Yeah, that's true. Would they, Ryan, be able to recycle any of the more exotic metals and alloys that they use, perhaps?
It's possible they could. I'm not, I guess, into that area of chemistry with the metals, but yeah, it's possible they could recycle some stuff, or at least just keep it some of the proprietary stuff to themselves.
Actually, Alex, you know a little bit about metals. What do you think about that? Recycling the...
They would definitely recycle with some of the more exotic trace metals they're using.
Awesome, thank you. Just while we're on this image quickly, we can see down in here where they've hooked up the oxygen system. This is one of the clearest images I've had for a while, where the new LOX tank supply comes along under here, and it goes through this expansion joint, and then there's a T piece over the back there to join into this manifold, allowing them to distribute the oxygen, liquid oxygen, through these pumps and off to whichever vehicle they're testing via this cut-off valve here to stop the backflow. And then when they're emptying the tank, they can return the flow back through here and take it back to whichever tank they need. Now, moving on to the static fire stand, wherever you are, we can see that they're installing chain blocks ready to lift the new dance floor, the new work platform. So you can see chain blocks. These ones look like they're electric chain blocks. We did expect to see them, to be honest. And so it's going to have a similar lifting system to what's on the current OLM down over the launch site. Oh, we can kind of see inside the trench today too. Can't really see much though, can we? I didn't notice. Oh, that one's a bit too dark. Yeah, so that's a happening thing. Now over to the test structure stand, the test stand structure. It appears that, actually, sorry, let's go over to that tent. It appears that they're actually currently taking the nose cone jail apart. We can see under here, oh, that's the wrong photo, hang on. We can see under this shed here all these hydraulic rams in here. Last week we saw those rams on the bottom of the nose cone jail, so it appears they actually are going to scrap the nose cone jail after all. Or they're reconfiguring it, but I imagine they would scrap it, to be honest. Because this new stand can do everything that stand could do, plus more. One of the things we saw was the rams up top here, the way you can twist the top around. And this new test structure has that ability with the ram system up top here. I do have an image there somewhere of that.
Yeah, given that they added that upper level there around the same time that we start seeing parts removed from the other structure, I think it's probably likely that the nose cone jail is not going to be much longer.
So this is an image from a few weeks ago, and you can see the can crusher cap has these added lugs for the hydraulic rams. We've noticed them on previous flyovers. And with this image in particular, it shows exactly how they line up to the legs of the stand here. And we've seen the lugs, I guess you call them, there for the hydraulic rams as well on the actual legs. So it's a good indicator of how it actually lines up perfectly. And obviously with that, they can perhaps push it left and right a little bit as well, but mostly this will be to add some some torsion to the whole test tank to allow a bit of twisting force. Okay, back to the images. A couple of things to note here. They've extended some, I think last week they were in the process, but they've extended all 20 bars here to add to the actual test structure. We can see, I'll come back to that ring in a second. Last week we were speculating, Last week we were speculating that this ring was taken out of the bottom of the new test stand. It may have been what the ship was resting on, but this week it's being assembled, so this is something new. I'm not sure what this is, but it's got little lugs. They're not holes, they're actual little lugs on top of it, so I'm not sure what it's going to be exactly.
It kind of looks like those might be some triangular pieces which would maybe go on the inside of the, if you think about the bottom of a test tank being like just a ring, it might provide some sort of form to keep it circular, kind of like the lead-ins on when they're assembling the different ring sections. It kind of looks like those stick up almost as if they're like the inverse of a lead-in almost.
Good point. Yep. Okay. So we're still keeping our eye, keeping our eye out for some more legs and ring sections, because it appears like there's the facility here to continue up in height. And I'm not sure I covered it last week or not. Looks like they've filled the top section here with concrete as well now. Down at the old can crusher, there's not a lot of change there. We can still see the old 20 rams here. So that's just about covers masses. So Darth, Lawrence, do we have any questions and donations, please?
Ton of support so far. Again, we really want to thank Matt for that generous support. Before the show started, we had Yop Kippers, who gifted a membership. Yesterday, we actually did have several support donations. We had Wilbo Baggins, who gifted $6.21. We had Mederick, who gifted $50. We had Leon, who gifted $11.87. We had Charles gifting $40. We had William donating $20. And we had Imagine Role Playing gifting or donating $20. We also had Mickey L donating for some more oxygen for $100. Then we had Sharpie Boo gifting or donating $9.99, saying treats for Sunny and snacks for the RGV team. Then we had James Allen, $5. Love the work you all do. And then we want to thank John DeVries for becoming a member. And then Cameron J came in with $50 for getting oxygen in the aircraft and doing a great job. And then we have two questions. The first relates to when Ryan was talking about Elon's talk. Why single failure points? Wouldn't it be wise having some redundancy in that hardware?
I think redundancy is something that they're moving more towards with kind of the Block 2 or version 2 of both vehicles. So I would expect that they may implement some, additional redundancy on maybe later version 1 boosters, but it seems like a lot of that stuff is being implemented on the version 2 of both vehicles.
All right. And Adrian came in. Are there any plans to build something similar to the Massey's test site at Florida? Because otherwise, how will they be doing ship static fires and cryo test?
I suppose there's maybe go ahead, Stephanie.
It would be a good idea if they're going to build airframes over there. I mean, eventually they may not have to test airframes as rigidly as they have to here because this is all R&D, obviously. But I would guess they'd have to have some kind of static fire facility, wouldn't you think, Ryan?
I think long term they probably will. In the short term, depending on when they want to start launching vehicles from Florida, they may do what they've been, alluding to what the plans are for a while now, which is to build the vehicles at Starbase and then transport them to the Cape and then launch them from there. So it's possible that at least the ships could do a static fire here at Massey's. Before going to, the port or whatever and getting on a boat and, going over to Florida. I think in the short term that's probably what we will see because I don't think they're going to be able to build vehicles in Florida at the timeline they're currently trying to meet. So I fully expect vehicles to, be built at Starbase and go to Florida.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Go ahead. That'd be a massive operation, wouldn't it, to actually get a ship and booster over to Florida?
Yeah, that's something that I've been looking forward to see them test. I thought they might do testing, related to Ship 26 with that, or put it on a barge and see what happens. And I'm kind of I'm interested to see that testing occur.
Okay, thanks, Lawrence.
Yeah, before we move on, we got one more donation from Toby Woby. Another $100 for the oxygen.
I wanted to jump in real quick here because we did get a couple more donations. We have Michael Whitney, FAA approved O2 systems, $97, $100. Alessandro Pretoni, $10 donation, happy landings. Budget bookkeeping, $100 donation, O2 fund. It also works great for hangovers. Okay, all right, I'll keep that one in mind. Jacob Winlow, oxygen fund, $200. Krisimi Stanev, $10 donation, fly safe. I do want to say, we did get some donations last night in show and tell. We can get those through. We'll make sure to mention them. Todd Bernard was one of the first ones. Toby Weeby Enterprises, like you mentioned, $100 donation. That one was from yesterday during PayPal, during our show and tell. I want to thank everybody for the support, the donations. It's unbelievable. We pretty much reached the goal pretty much the first half of the stream, which was unexpected. Thank you so much. Hand it back to Darth here.
All right. Thank you, Mauricio. And I think with that, we've wrapped up for Massey's.
Okay, I'll head over to Sanchez. Wow, by the way, that's pretty amazing. They're from the community here at RGV. I'm almost speechless. Obviously, I'm not, but wow, just wow. That's so awesome. It's obvious that everyone cares that RGV continues to do these flyovers, and more importantly, that he does them in a safe manner. And because hypoxia is a very real danger, and it does take pilots out every year. So yeah, wow. I can't get over how much the community's got behind this drive. So thank you all so much. That's just amazing. Okay, with that being said, let's move over to the new OLM. So not a lot of visible work this week, but I mean, you can imagine how much welding is going to be involved with getting this monstrosity welded together and adding all the different parts. We see a part on the crane here. It's more than likely just getting lifted up onto its stands, or I don't know, perhaps it's getting moved over to this side where it belongs, perhaps. You can imagine how much welding has to be undertaken to get this together. We can see these little plates here have all definitely been put in place. That was one of the first things that happened. So once they get all that welded up, we'll start seeing these pieces lifted up on top, and that'll complete that part of it. Just going back here, there was a bit of chat. I don't know, was it you, Ryan? But there was a bit of chat in one of the Discord channels about the reason behind this curve would be to help push some of the acoustic energy into the corners to help to strengthen the whole OLM up here.
Yeah, I made some comments about how the shape here could be related to distributing the loads of the ring section, because basically what they've got is you have a circle and you need to support it with something that is going to span the gap underneath the circle. So this square structure here is basically just like a square beam structure that then the circle ring is going to sit on top of. And so the shape that they have here, the reason why it might extend out toward the middle is just because that's going to be the point furthest from the corners that's going to require the most strength. Those corner pieces can kind of distribute straight into the corners, and of course we believe that this is going to sit on kind of like 4 pedestals in the corners. So all of the structural loads from the entire vehicle and stack are going to have to be transmitted at least to the 4 corners. Whether there's maybe additional 2 spots on each corner, we don't really know yet, but it seems like everything is leading toward the structural loads being transmitted to those corners, and this shape probably has something to do with that, since the center there is going to be the least supported. So trying to strengthen that up and then translate along those beams to the corners. I'm not a structural engineer, but when I look at it, that's kind of how it looks like the shape is kind of formulated to operate.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I think some of your guesses are a lot better than any of our guesses. Thank you.
Yeah, and Stephanie, I don't think it's for any of the acoustic energy, because reflecting it into a corner tends to amplify and create standing waves.
It's
Okay.
possible that they could also be gearing up to like put something in those corners. We don't really know. I mean, maybe there's some sort of a water system that'll spray water out from those corners, but they want to keep it kind of tucked back in the corner. We'll just have to wait to see what they do. But yeah, it does look a little odd. I'll admit to have that shape like that. But as with most things, here this is highly engineered, so there's very clearly a reason for why they've designed it that way.
And they do have the 8 ports in those corners, the openings. So
Okay, wait, does it right? So the water plate, the pancake, it seems they're starting to weld it together. We can see these 2 pieces put together, and I think one more piece arrived. Now a little a new bit of development is over here. Let's get the side shot. Hang on. So this looks like something similar to what we saw. Maybe the down shot was better. Something similar we saw at Massey's to support the plane bucket. So whether that's actually what it is or not, I'll just show a couple of images here from the past. So we're looking at this piece here, and it could be this structure starting to get created to hold the flame buckets here, which may even, a little quick render Kiwi came up with for us. So it looks something like, this is very rough, this is nowhere near accurate, this is something he just slapped together from, he basically back to back his old render from Massey's and just sort of slapped this together quickly for show and tell yesterday. So be on the lookout for some more. And perhaps a water-cooled wedge in the middle. And this is the flame. This is an early one we didn't before we even knew what was going on. So it ended up looking like that. Sorry to jump through that so quick. So that could be what this new development is there. I'll go back to this image. So last week we saw those bits of steel arriving, getting moved around and arriving. So good to see them actually in place.
It's interesting how I think we were calling those the kind of the C pieces for the Massey's. These ones have kind of a diagonal bracing going on, like on the insides of them. So it's clear that they're maybe expecting a lot more loads on these pieces, or maybe they learned something from the Massey's assembly that made them want to change their design slightly. But yeah, it's interesting to see kind of a similar structure take form, but it's also a little bit different. It looks a little more beefed up for sure. So, which I think is expected since 6 engines on the ship is a little different than 33 on the booster.
And the corners are different where it's wrapping around the bucket. It doesn't look like it's going to have a vertical edge.
They may still add that, but yeah,
The angle looks a little different.
It does look a little different. Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye on that, but it's good to see that going ahead. And they moved this tank. I guess they only moved it. I was getting excited when I saw that getting moved on the Lab Padre cameras, but it looks like they just moved it to make a bit more room for this assembly here. So it's like, where is all the room going? Remember, only a few weeks ago was when the tower, or a month ago, say, and all the tower parts moved out. We're thinking, oh, there's so much room here. What are they going to do with it all? And now look at it. It's all mostly crowded again.
The pipes are reproducing.
The pipes have, spawned. They like a gremlin. They got some left out in the rain.
Yeah, now they're everywhere.
Which is good to see. So let's move over to this area. We've, since last week, Booster Transport Stand 2 now we've seen in action. So it's taken Booster 13 over to the launch site and back. And this stand has got some extra paint work done. So it looks like they may start working on this one again. These, talking about spawning, these work stands have also, there's been a few more this week. So it looks like they have 2 levels on each stand. And I'll just change photos here, over here. And I think they're unbolting them for transport into the Star Factory. You can see here how there's two platforms per stand. Now I'm wondering with this, where is that other stand? I'm wondering, just quickly jump over here. I'm wondering whether this stand now, the number 1 old transport stand, it's not even that old, the booster transport stand number 1, I'm wondering whether they'll actually replace these slides again like they did for transport stand number 2. Because they seem to get rusty very quickly over here in the salty air of Boca Chica. So we'll move on to the SQD assembly area. When I find the right image. That one. Okay, we'll start with the carriage. There's a lot more scaffolding going on on the carriage. You can see we're missing this plate here. Is that right, Alex? On the other, actually, Brian, you've modelled these, haven't you? They're missing a plate here.
They've some of them are a little different. There's definitely some differences on this carriage compared to the other one, so it's kind of hard to tell exactly what they're doing where. I know the one, yeah, it wouldn't be that side. I know that it's a little different on the side where the E-chain attaches, which should be, I think, the left one. That's where you're going to have some of the other plating on it. But yeah, I don't think there's supposed to be a plate up there where you had highlighted before.
They did add one to the current tower on the lower leg by the Chine, I thought, recently.
They were working up on that area there, weren't they, up near where the chain attaches on the current tower? Not sure what for.
They put a platform
Okay, yeah.
because they're constantly hanging scaffolding off of it.
So you're saying one day we may see platforms all over it like this?
I hope not.
Absolutely. Now, we saw them, I think, test fitting some of these wraparound braces. We still don't seem to see them actually being welded on yet. So they're going a bit slow on the chopsticks still. We still don't see any lower stabilizer work yet, or much to do with the actuators and dampeners up here. So maybe they'll do another landing or two. I'd love to see Ryan's post video, or is it Zach's post video, about how the landing rails actually worked. The booster seemed to pretty well stop. I think I noticed the rails moved a fraction when the booster actually landed, but then it wasn't until the engines quit that it actually lowered completely. Whether that was how they were supposed to operate or not, but that's sort of what happened. So they do seem to work. But I'll leave that one to Zach's special episode, which I think is next deep dive into the actual landing and how the rails all worked. Should be interesting. And I guess you're doing some work on that with him, Ryan.
I think Zach is doing kind of a general post-flight deep dive, kind of talk about some of the maybe lesser-known things. I haven't seen the script. I don't know exactly everything he's talking about, but I'm assuming he will mention something regarding the landing rails and their compression.
Okay, look forward to that. Okay, I'm with the SQD arm. They seem to have bolted the hinge area on and the locking mechanism. And this is currently the way the tower Breaker Checker launch site was installed, just as it is here. Maybe they'll add a bit more plumbing this time before they actually put it up. Now they know what they're doing a bit better. We've seen a steady flow of these old tower base things taken away from this site, and I believe they're going to Florida. I think someone said they may even be at the tower construction area now. I didn't quite chase that up.
Yeah, we've seen legs for the modular transport stands actually being set back in place on the pads they already had there from an NSF flyover, actually.
Go Team Space. So that's a good indicator they're going to perhaps build a new tower. Now, last week we saw an SPMT underneath this tank, and I can't imagine that would take it off to the launch site, but they just put it back down on stands and moved it, I guess, out of the way from this area where they seem to be doing some GSE work with this funny coloured green plumbing. So there's a fair bit of work going on here. We can see they're adding elbows and so on, whether it's to do with the new OLM or whether it's to do with the actual GSC equipment at the launch site. We'll have to find out sooner or later. You can see some of it comes pre-installed with elbows, so interesting to see what happens there.
I think those are assembled and stacked because they usually came just as straight pipe.
Oh, okay, so they've gone from this sort of pipe assembled and then put over here ready to take down to the launch site.
Correct. And the mystery heat exchangers, they still haven't welded on the flanges yet.
Yep, so this is the later one that came, the last one to arrive and hasn't had its modifications yet. Just before I leave this area, I think that's about all. They've moved one of these platforms into the factory, I guess.
Or the paint bay on the bottom. Because I searched all over for it. Yeah, right there is where I think it is.
Do we have a shot back from that way?
It's all closed up.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye out on those.
Yeah, doors. I love the doors. They should ban doors for us so we can see inside. Okay, I think we've covered most of that area. Let's go over to the scrapyard, where we have some interesting developments.
Concrete scrapping, perhaps?
Concrete scrapping seems to be their favourite thing lately. So in this area, they've been ripping up concrete and repouring concrete in a random sort of a pattern, or perhaps it's to do with the old air separation unit, ripping out old footings and so on.
They did have a couple of the storage tanks in that area at one point.
This panorama shows it a bit better here. Pretty sure that's where the tower was for the air separation unit. So perhaps they've been digging up some of the footings and then replacing it with some nice fresh concrete. So once again, concrete's not a sacred thing around here. And they've moved, these containers came from the old crane yard over near the Starlink integration building, which I guess that'll still be that. So maybe we're going to see this as a new crane yard in the near future rather than a scrapyard. And maybe the new scrapyard is sort of this area where they have been scrapping stuff. So they've pretty well fully scrapped Booster 4's old transport stand. They're still hanging on to these articles. That's kind of weird. Okay, the PES loader has arrived here. So perhaps it's getting scrapped. We can see a bank of Starlink still inside it. And we can see another bank of Starlink sitting on the ground here. So perhaps they're getting scrapped as well.
Yeah, it's possible that they are replacing the internal racking mechanism to kind of the newer version, because they've kind of gone away from the original design that they were using on the version 1 ships. The version 2 uses a slightly different kind of mechanism. It's roughly the same, but it operates a little differently. So it's possible they may be upgrading the kind of the internal. So part of that process involves kind of moving all the Starlinks out of here. So we'll see if it gets completely scrapped or if maybe they lift something else inside there.
Yeah. Now these, I thought these were two. They're single. So that's just a single rack of 4 Starlink, the bigger Starlink satellites. And I've got an idea these may be scrapped as well. They've been sitting around for quite some time now. I think we did see them in one of the walkthroughs ages ago, I believe.
Yeah, one of Tim Dodd's tours, we saw one that was kind of presented all prettily right in the area they walked by. That was kind of our first up close view at one of them. But since then, we've seen I think a bunch of stacks of them actually in the shed where they normally keep all this stuff. And yeah, it kind of seems like they have maybe moved past these ones, because I think these have been in the Pez dispenser for a long time now. And so yeah, they're probably an outdated design at this point. And yeah, there's probably no value in them. They may move them somewhere else, but yeah, I feel like they're getting them out of that dispenser for a reason, and we'll see what that ends up being.
I think there was also a FCC filing for version 3 that they're moving past this version 2 design.
Yeah, I think for a while Elon has referred to the ones that will fly on Starship as version 3. So because they had the version 2 minis that they flew on Falcon 9, so I'm not at all surprised about that.
I mean, they've added capabilities like the T-Mobile and so on that these older ones may not even have. It might even be something simple like that.
I suppose the other thing that this also means is that they now have their sights set on Starlink once again. So not that 31 will get Starlinks or anything like that, but it's possible that 34 or 35 could actually be the first flight to maybe deploy a Starlink or two.
Yeah, because that would be a fairly important goal, I would imagine, to start getting Starlinks up there and start getting Starship to actually earn its keep a little bit. It's got a fair way to go to recover all this cost, I would imagine. But yeah, I think Starlink's cash positive these days, so that's a good thing for SpaceX as well. Yeah, also we've got the new version, the new 4-point lifter stand. So this is an old 2-point lifter stand like the one over there that's been modified to handle a 4-point lifter. Now, I'm not sure this one over here is getting scrapped or whether it's on its way over to get modified over at the stand construction area. Kind of ominously looks like it's staying in the scrapyard. On this top-down shot, just to annoy the ACD people, just to move this transport stand around, they've got the odd shape, the odd length SPMTs under it.
It's not very nice, Stephanie.
Just quickly over to the garage. There's a little bit of work going on. They seem to have extended these poles, these bits of iron up higher. Last week we saw them down this high, so that's getting a type of a facade on that side to make it all look nice and like a square block. They've modified this doorway down here. They've changed their mind how this angle bit here is going to work and filled in this little piece in here. And going back to this front shot here, we can see that the front corner is going to be white, just white, not black, just an odd tall white part. Most of the rest of the factory is white down the bottom and black on top, but nope, for some reason they've changed their mind here.
Just wait a couple weeks, it'll probably be something painted.
Let's quickly go over here because there's another photo here of what's going on over on that particular area. So you can see they're putting some kind of maybe expanded metal sort of mesh to cover this whole side, which kind of a bit funny that you can see through it. It's sort of not going to be a complete solid wall, but also shows the nice pretty white corner here. I thought maybe a mural might go over that, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Okay, back to Sanchez. I think we're pretty well covered Sanchez. So we'll hear from Lawrence again for some more questions and donations, please.
All right, so I'm going to shout out some that I missed earlier. These had come in, I believe, during the show and tell. Thanks for bearing with me here. All right, so we have Steven. Sorry. With $100, Hugh with $100, Martin with $124.25, Beverly with $50, Todd with $100, and William with $10. Our own Blackwater, I believe, also gave a $200 donation. And as far as questions, Crane Man just was asking, is the white tank on its side on the left for the rocket garden or the orbital tank farm? And it's the small tank laying on its side with the 4 legs.
I believe that tank has been there since it was removed from the suborbital. And then it was painted, and it's been sitting there ever since.
So yeah, got no idea on that one. It was over here for a little bit, and it was moved to there. That's all that happens with it.
Yeah, we'll have to see if it gets repurposed.
Okay, any more questions, Lawrence?
We should be good to move on.
Okay, once again, wow, guys, that's just amazing, guys and girls. That's just incredible. Your generosity today is just outstanding. Okay, onto the build site. I believe I already started. Okay, we might as well start at this bay. We can see ship 31 has some tile work going on in the flap area. It doesn't appear it's getting quite as much tile work as ship 30 did. Would you care to comment on that, Ryan?
Yeah, so based on, I guess, what we've seen is that it seems like they're mainly focused around the flaps on ship 31, and they're not doing as much of the repair work as they did on ship 30. So that could mean a number of different things. Either the stronger tiles that they, I guess, retrofitted onto ship 30, they may not have worked as well as they hoped. Or maybe they did, but they just don't feel it necessary to put them on 31. And maybe those tiles are reserved for the version 2 ships. 31, it really seems like 31's job is just to replicate what 30 did in terms of making it back to the splashdown zone. So it's possible that there wasn't as much performance improvement, maybe on like the belly of the ship, to constitute replacing all of those tiles, since they know that that's not exactly a failure point, or at least hasn't proven to be one yet. So it's possible that they just want to ensure that those flaps are going to not melt, and that 31 will be able to basically repeat what 30 did. So, making sure that the flap areas are well protected is probably the number one priority with ship 31.
Thank you. Okay, moving over to Megabay 1. We can see some odd things down here. We're discussing this in show and tell and couldn't quite work out what on earth we were looking at. So at first we thought Chine covers, and then we looked at them closely and saw they were rounded. This shot shows them well too. They almost look like those side tanks we saw on the landing on that aft section of booster. Those side tanks to the main landing tank. They almost look like them flattened. It's quite a mystery. I guess they come off ship 12 either way. They kind of have that circular top shape that those little tanks had. I couldn't imagine what they are.
Why are they covered?
Some thought maybe they failed in flight. Somehow the pressure wasn't correct, or they weren't set up for the pressure, and there may have been a pressure difference between the main LOX tank and the landing tank system. And I mean, the landing tank would
Yeah.
be pressurized on landing.
I don't think that happened.
Yeah,
If those imploded, then the landing tank would implode too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's only a couple atmospheres pressure.
I'm just sort of conveying people's thoughts, but yeah, it's a bit of a mystery. Maybe they've already been scrapped, and someone suggested that they've rolled over them with the crane already.
I mean, they look like they're covered with the tarp, so it's kind of hard to.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know. The coloring is kind of deceiving, I think. You know, I almost wonder if it's chine pieces that are with the edge down, so the open edge is up, and they've just put, you know, a tarp over the top of it or something.
Yeah, that seems likely.
Cool, thank you. Just while we got this big shot on, it looks like they've finished fully cleaning the roof. So we'll see how long that lasts with all the nice dust around. In this image, we can see the cryo transport stand, which has since had Ship 33 put on it. Excuse me, and then taken off to Massey's last night during your night. So that was good to see. It was my afternoon that happened. So Ship 33, and we've got a good view of Ship 33 with its couple of tiles missing here and there. Actually don't have an image on me handy, but the low Padres cameras definitely got good images of it coming out of the Mega Bay 2, and it all seemed to go quite well with the 4-point lifting jig, lifting it up off the stand back there and putting it down onto the transport stand, and then eventually rolling out through the door. We sort of missed some of the lift because they had the door shut, as they do, but once they opened the door, it was like ta-da, and there was the reveal. Okay, let's move around to the back of the factory. This photo with this work here going on behind here seems a bit more extensive than originally thought. I originally thought that this was just for drainage for these downpipes here, but it seems like it's quite a lot more going into it, and they've opened up trenches all the way through to here. And they've added these walls here, and it looks like these are form work for some more wall, more of this wall to continue on, and we can see cutouts for the new drainage system in here. So that's similar to the wall all the way we see all the way around. They're just finishing this little part in here to finally finalise this drainage area. And following along, not a lot change over in this area. They still haven't, this shot here shows it, they still haven't hooked up these units yet, but that's a job to be done further down the track. It's not very important right now. This area hasn't changed much, but still hasn't been filled in, so it's still being used for, I don't know, whatever it is. This little area here, they're still continuing to work on. Originally thought it was something to do with maybe adding another set of these units. We go back to this shot here. We see that some of the plumbing here has been finished off here with flanges, so it looks like there's room for that to be expanded to add some more cooling for whatever is in this shed, which we don't actually know what's in this building yet. Onto the ring yard. Just a single ring here and a couple of flattened. Hang on, they flattened them since the flyover. while they were doing the flyover by the look of it. If we look at this shot here, then... Oh, hang on, I'm missing something. I'm sure one of the photos, there's flattened pieces in here. Anyhow, there's some smaller, perhaps, landing tank rings and a single ring there. Just bear with me for a second. Ah, it doesn't matter. I must have seen a different image. Okay, we'll leave that. Okay, on to the new office area. So I've installed that triangle, which is going to hold the glass for that skylight. So definitely no hopper to go down into there, which I think was a little bit of an speculation thrown around a little bit in the past, that they may put hopper down in there, but that's obviously not happening now. They've cleaned this area up a lot. Little interesting note here. We can see how they're stacking this insulation up here, and Alex, you're pointing out this system comes like this for drainage reasons.
Correct. Since it's a flat roof, they're using it to build up the slope so the water flows to the drains, which are located in the interior rather than on the edge.
So these would come already numbered and ordered, so they come. So they have to assemble them basically in the correct order to create the slope. They probably tape it a little bit themselves to create this nice flat roof area, which would be a bit of a job for a CAD, I would imagine.
You can see the diamond shapes on the left around where it slopes down. I mean, on the right side, my bad.
Yeah, you can see where the dirt's kind of pooled too.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Oh, I see, yep. So I was yesterday years old when I learned that. I learned a lot from our show and tells. It's well worth becoming a Patreon member and joining in our show and tells. It's quite a good session. We talk about a lot of things in a lot more depth than we do on the live streams here. And that's good. Some people like it. Some people prefer the shorter weekly updates. But I really enjoy the show and tells. I learn a lot. We have a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds that can answer a lot of different questions. So this week we see a little bit more roof work, a little bit more framework. Not a great deal this week on the framework. A little bit of cladding. And we can see they've buried the conduit work that Zach touched on last week, which I missed last week in the show and tell. And getting ready to continue the framework in this area.
Back on the left there, it kind of looks like there's an opening for maybe a big door right there. So, and there's a spacing also. If you look at the columns kind of just inside that, there's a wall kind of running at like a 45-degree angle from it. There's also a similar sized spacing. Actually, no, just to the left of that. Yeah, between those two columns. So, kind of looks like maybe they're keeping some space there for larger items to move in and out.
Wouldn't be to bring stuff through here like from the factory that way. I wouldn't imagine, would you? So this isn't. Are they going to have bridge cranes in here? It's looking like, is that a bridge crane rail? It is, isn't it?
It is.
No, it is, okay, yep. Because over these other areas, the bridge crane, I think, is going to finish here. Okay, so these lower levels, the bridge crane will run all the way in, probably back to here somewhere. Cool. So it may be where they bring in the eggs or any sort of thing in through there. They may be able to back a truck in. Interesting. Thanks, Ryan.
They may actually, because they kind of have like multiple lines going through the building currently. I wonder if they'll maybe like start a section kind of in the area that's to the bottom of the frame, and then maybe go out a door on the back of the factory, and maybe go in that front area to then start like a secondary line Maybe it doesn't exactly seem like an ideal flow, but at least they have the option to do that if need be.
They're going to cover this area, aren't they, with more of this? Now,
Yeah.
I found those flattened sections. So as you can see, they've actually flattened these sections since apply, or it didn't show up in the other photo, perhaps. But here's the flat section. Not going crazy after all.
I think the two on the left there were in that photo you had shown. They were just maybe a different color from the light angle.
Yeah, that's what's going on. Let me have a double check. Oh, there's one there. Yep, correct. Yep. Gotcha.
Sneaky.
I reckon. Trying to make me think I'm crazy. I can do that on my own, thank you. Now, over here, they've added some glass, I think, from last week. And since this photo... Oh, here, you can see it here. They've added a second bar down through here, which is something to do with the glass and the steel meeting, I'd imagine.
I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this before, but that kind of platform there that we can kind of see that seems to run down kind of to the left, it does run all the way into the rest of the factory, and there's actually a glass kind of railing along the inside, at least on the inside of the factory. If you stand outside the factory at night and you kind of look in at the right angle, you can actually basically see the top of that. So it's like a glass railing that runs along the entire platform on the interior of the factory, all the way up to the front of the nose cone hall. So it's pretty cool at night being able to kind of look in through the windows there and see some of the details up there.
You want to watch your head on that diagonal there. Duck. So we originally sort of thought this may be like a floor all the way through, but it looks like it's just going to be that platform through there. That's interesting. Thanks, Ryan. So somewhere between that bit of white and this bit of glass, there's going to be somewhere in here that's going to stop being white and start being glass. I'd imagine just here somewhere. Okay. What else is going on? Just let me have a quick look. The roadway. Yep, we've covered in a bit of the San Martin Boulevard here, and they brought some of the plumbing, some of the gutter, drainage works coming over to this street here. That's not Meme Street, is it? One of these is Meme Street, isn't it? I can't remember which one was Meme Street. It looks like we're finally getting some new roadway concrete or new roadway asphalt put down over here. So that all should match that end of the boulevard. A little detail in there, the covering, cladding that little area as well, looking nice and white. Looks like they've still got this trench work open. They've covered that bit of trench work. There's still leading, little rises there still. So there's probably going to be some kind of control box here, perhaps. Okay, just to finish, we'll go over to the village. This shows the concrete pool. Last week, I think we noticed the concrete shell has been poured for the bigger pool. Looking more like a normal sort of concrete shell that I'm quite familiar with. Some nice steps and a nice little shallow area. Nice little walk-in area. Perhaps a little kiddie's sort of pool where it's nice and shallow and leads into quite a shallow pool. And perhaps some kind of jacuzzi over here. Looks like a jacuzzi with a seat all the way around. And they'll continue with the plumbing, and looks like they're going to have the pump house perhaps here somewhere. The plant room. Wow, the donations. Wow. You guys are amazing. Over at the sushi bar, they've added the concrete floor, which they did last week, adding a bit of the base of the walls, so that should start to take shape soon. I'm still not convinced either way whether it's going to have glass walls or not. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Okay, I think we covered everything at the build site. Lawrence, have we got some questions and donations?
Yeah, for sure. So some of the PayPal donations we had Leon with a $9.89 donation, James with a $10 donation. The message that Blackwater sent with his was fresh air for the boys, and Patrick with a $20.72 donation. We had Sputnik Gazer, who's gifted 5 memberships. We had Ribby, I believe it's pronounced, Ribby, and $20 donation, and just saying thanks for your dedication. And then we had Crane Man with a question. Could the office building extension in the back of the Star Factory be for Starship interior development, while the Star Factory itself is for the hardware, boosters, and ships?
I'll let Ryan answer that.
I think they'll probably find places to put work, stations. I think that they're probably going to go through a little bit of a reorganization once more of the factory is kind of up going to speed. Because it seems like for a while they were kind of working out of that original area. So there's likely some tooling that's going to be moved around over the next coming months as they kind of get things into the positions that they like and set up the lines how they like. So I think things are definitely going to kind of move around within the factory as far as where like specific things are going to be developed. I'm not sure. We'll maybe see if SpaceX gives us some more insights inside the factory with some B-roll, before flights and whatnot, and maybe we'll be able to figure out where they're doing certain things.
All right, and we had one more PayPal donation for $200 from Richard, who says O2 system and equipment updates. Yeah, we should be good to move on.
Thank you. Okay, let's move over to the launch site. Okay, let's start over in the Pad A area. So we've got the Commodities trenches had some formwork put up, ready to pour the walls. So this isn't going to use those prefab sort of sections. So we've got the last week we saw them put the base concrete in to tie the actual piles in, and this week they're going to add. So on the outside, looks like they're going to use the sheet piles for some lost formwork, and on the inside they seem to be. On this side, they're using actual formwork. So they may, I think Alex was saying they'll probably cut these off.
Correct. And tie in the trench walls to that structure at some point.
Still lots of water in the trench. Don't seem to be wanting to get rid of the water just yet. They haven't quite finished. Oh, go on.
I'd say it just keeps getting deeper and deeper.
They haven't quite finished setting up the dewatering system here yet. They do have the pumps here for them. Is that right? They're the pumps for the dewatering?
I believe those are just trash pumps for the stagnant water.
Sorry, that's right. You did say that. So this these pumps here, Alex? Can you explain that again for me quickly?
They use a venturi, so you pump water down to the bottom, and there's a little venturi valve to aspirate, and that'll sucks the water out and push it to the capture pipe, and then it'll settle in the frac tank at the top and continues the cycle and drain off the excess.
Cool. What else? So this was installed last week, this part of it as well. This rig here. So this rig has already put some of the tiebacks
Tieback.
we believe in here.
Correct.
We've still got a nice big pile of rebar, or if you want to say it the Aussie way, or the Rio sitting down there.
And they still have a bunch of drains for the dewatering piled up as well.
Over here, yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, they haven't lifted the crane up yet. We believe that's because Flight 6 should be fairly soon, so there's no real use to put the crane together and lift it back up again. We've seen the LR 1100 being used, well, we saw it last week at least, to put the chain. Have we got a picture of that? To put the cable chain up. Can we see that in this photos? Forgot to look at that yesterday in the show and tell.
It's there, but it's kind of barely visible because it's in the shadow. But yeah, it's right there. That black line.
And they've added some braces for now. They'd be temporary braces, is that correct?
I thought they were part of the guides for it too.
Okay, because when the carriage is all the way up, the chain is pretty well fully extended from here, isn't it? It's all that bottom chain will be up here by then, once the carriage is all the way up.
Correct.
Cool. Okay, we can see a whole lot of piles. I'm not sure these are new or these ones they've just uncovered.
Those are all new.
Old ones. All new, sorry, yeah.
Yep.
So we can see the pile digger working away here. And they seem to be not in any kind of pattern, so whether this is, we can't see the rest of them. We think this is sort of the water deluge area, so we're not quite sure how they're going to set up. We sort of thought they may be something to do with the pipes running perhaps through there, but that's still yet to be determined. Not sure about that at all.
That area where your hand is was torn out when at the very beginning. I don't think it's indicating of anything.
Okay, yeah, it was only ever speculation that it kind of lines up because it lines up with that sort of in a line. So a lot of what some things we say is quite loose sort of speculation. It's all good.
Well, they're going to need a tunnel for the commodity pipes, since that's where the main driveway is for.
Yeah, for both pads, yeah, it's got to go there and there. So definitely going to let the commodities go underground, perhaps through here or somewhere. I'm not sure yet. So while we're on this photo, we'll move. I think that's about all the updates for this area. Did you find anything extra in here, Alex?
Oh, probably nothing of that much interest.
So for now, they seem to be concentrating a lot of their work actually on the flame trench. They seem to have got the tower sort of up to a point now. I guess there's still this sort of accessory stuff going on in the bottom of the tower here, and I guess eventually the draw works. They'll be getting that cable chain all sort of wide and plumbed up there, because it would also have some hydraulic plumbing on it, would imagine. So it looks like they're concentrating most of their efforts now actually on the trench, which is awesome. So moving over to this little area here, we can see a little bit more work going on. They've moved one of the coolers slash hippos slash coolers slash whatever these things are. Added some electrical conduits. So it doesn't look like there's going to be a third one here anytime soon.
More piles everywhere you look.
Down in here.
Yeah, straight down near the right by the base, up where they dug the hole, across a little bit further to the right. Your left, in the hole, right above the stand. Yeah, right there.
Cool. My left, that's that way.
Yeah.
That's because I'm in Australia and upside down, you see.
All the blood goes to your head.
They lifted this container here that has some air conditioning, like air handling sort of unit stuff, which must have been quite a tight squeeze through there. Must have gone boing, 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 wobble its way in. And the couple of little tanks we saw rock up on a truck through the week have been put in there as well. Not sure what that's all in aid of. And you see, that's why that gap was left the whole time, you see, because I knew they were going to put that in there. That was sarcasm, by the way. Maybe they did know. I don't know. Okay, so a bit of time to kill.
I know when I was down there for Flight 5, they didn't have any, anything up along the front of the site there. So where Starhopper was, you could kind of stand and look into the launch site. And one thing that really surprised me was how high off the ground those horizontal tanks are. You don't really get a perspective on really how high off the ground those are unless you're kind of standing there in person, but they're pretty high off the ground. You could easily walk underneath them with room to spare. So it's yeah, you could even drive a car under there easily. So I was pretty surprised with that. I didn't expect them to really be that high off the ground. In fact, you can see a truck backed in there on the right.
Yeah, they could have slid the that container underneath as well.
Okay, yeah, they had to. Yeah, we did see them crane it in. There was a shot that the when they had the cameras over at near Hoppy, Ryan as well, and they were panning the camera across. When it came to this section here, because of the time of day, you couldn't actually see the tank so much, and it took us ages to work out what this area was, what was going on here. I knew it was here, but I couldn't work out what they had done, and it took us a while. We finally worked out, and it was because the gap under that tank was way bigger than we thought.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can really say is that I thought of like a parking garage because you have this like structure above you and it's, there's a lot of concrete. It gave off like parking garage vibes, but clearly it's not. It's it's a tank farm. But yeah, I was pretty shocked by that.
Well,
That's a
that'd
really
be
good
kind
way
that'd
to
be
describe
cool.
it.
That's the first time I think I've seen a photo with a car under there because, well, they did slide those vaporizers up under there too, didn't they?
Yep. I mean, it's probably 10 feet high underneath. I mean, the stairs going up to those platforms, elevated platforms by the tanks, are pretty high.
True. Nice bit of venting going on there.
Yeah, speaking of those vaporizers, those things are quite massive. You see photos of them, and it really doesn't do it justice when you're there in person looking at some of this hardware. Especially the closer that they get some of this to the road, the more obvious it becomes. But yeah, those vaporizers are like small buildings essentially, but they don't really look like it, from 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
A funny little thing we noticed, this one may be twisted. I can see the base is straight, but the top's twisted because of maybe this guy wire here, which is kind of funny.
So that's the one they pulled the top, nearly pulled the top off when they were placing it as well.
So it was already compromised.
Yeah. Wonder where they're going to install that orange crane.
Oh yeah, we didn't see that. No. There's a couple of them. What needs to be lifted in and out? There's not a lot that would need it.
The baskets, perhaps? The strainers?
Okay, over in this area.
Or where the Lux valve assembly is, with the roof on it.
They have a little bridge crane in that assembly there, so I don't think they would add anything in there.
Oh, that's right. I do now remember the tracks that you mentioned it.
So this little bit of plumbing here has been loaded, has been put onto the racks. It seems to end right here. You're saying, Alex, perhaps they're going to have sprinklers on here?
Yeah. They
And that's
pulled
where-
all of that out.
Go on.
No, they pulled all that out when they were demoing the vertical tanks.
So I remember there was a sprinkler here and a sprinkler here earlier on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they would do, but probably a checkbox for code.
So we saw Booster 13 roll out, get statified and roll back in the shortest time we've seen so far in, what was it, 3 days, which is pretty pretty impressive to see. So Booster 13 will be going back to the production site to have its final checkouts, final flight fit-outs, and perhaps a few more rivets or nuts and bolts added to the chines to make sure they don't fall off again.
Speed tape.
Bit of speed tape, yeah, that's the answer for sure. It is FAA approved after all. Not sure how that handles like supersonic speeds though.
And getting cooked.
Yeah. So overall, the whole launch site, they haven't seemed to have worked on the SQD arm at all this time. So whether they've managed to get it out of the way quicker or what's going on there, or they've managed to do the robusting. Like they added those little landing posts for this whole assembly to land on, so it doesn't seem to break its actuators anymore. Or perhaps when that happened, it damaged the plumbing as this pipe work as well, because they haven't seemed to have replaced any of the plumbing in the not only the SQD arm but also the BQD. They haven't replaced any of the flex hoses, which is a pretty good sight, pretty good thing to see. This week we can see a bit of the charring from the actual landing. We couldn't see last week so much. I think Ryan, you're trying to talk about it last week but couldn't quite see. But this week it does show up quite well as the booster came in and translated across horizontally here. Of course, it had to correct its sideways motion by tipping the tail towards the tower, and it looked like the plume actually kind of hit the bottom of the tower there.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough latent heat too that the flames don't exactly have to, hit a metal surface in order to discolor it or anything like that. So it's pretty hot regardless down there. But yeah, I mean, I stood out, around the launch site, the day before launch and then the day after launch, and it was pretty obvious that something had happened at near the base of the tower. So yeah, there's some changes, but it's probably not anything that they didn't expect. And they were bringing the booster in probably the most careful manner that they could to, kind of get it where it needed to be at the last minute so that, if there were, an issue that they protect, some of the most critical hardware. So, sometimes you have to balance a trade-off, and I think in this case they allowed for the extra burning at the base, which is why we saw the cladding there. So.
So with the cladding have been put on for the launch as well, for lift up as well, but it's obviously saying it's going to be important for the landing because of the way the booster has to correct its its horizontal velocity. So it's going to have to lean that way a bit to slow down to a stop. I guess on take up as well, it needs some protection as well, I would imagine.
I kind of expect that, as they continue to catch and things get more refined, that they may not use the same trajectory, because technically what they did was not like the most optimal for catching the booster. And the fact that they're bringing the booster back already, it loses some efficiency, but the trade-off is that they can, potentially get it ready for another flight much quicker. So I imagine they'll probably refine that trajectory a little bit more as things are proven out. And maybe it's more ensured that the booster isn't going to encounter an issue, right before the landing burn. So I kind of expect that whole maneuvering to come in for the catch to change, over the next, 5 to 10 catches. So it may burn less of the infrastructure, the tower, as they go and they make those changes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the flight of the booster changes over time, like you're saying, because it was quite oppressive. It was kind of aggressive. You say gentle, like I guess there's a limited amount of time they can actually have the landing burn. It's a little bit longer takes a bit longer to translate than like Falcon 9, for instance, it just drops straight down. But I think it translates a little bit as well at the last minute. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that or if it changes that last little sideways movement.
Yeah, they pretty much did, I guess, what I had described in my video about catching the booster, where they seemed to actually target a position that was about between the two locations that I had specifically pointed out, because you can see the booster as it comes in, how it kind of moves about a little bit. So they brought it in pretty much how I expected it to be. But yeah, the landing burn was pretty short. As soon as they released the timeline for the mission, it was pretty obvious that the landing burn was going to be quite short. And I'll be honest, that had me a little bit shocked. I wasn't expecting it to be that short, but yeah, they brought it in pretty much how they expected, I think, and I expect to see that change a little bit more over the next few flights. I guess one other thing to note too is that with the shorter arms, the booster is likely going to have to be a little bit closer to the tower when they catch, so that horizontal motion with the canceling of the horizontal velocity kind of toward the last minute. They're probably not going to want to tilt the booster like they did, that close to the tower, because you'll really be cooking it. Then you'll be sending the plume, pretty much into the truss of the tower. So they probably don't want to do that with the shorter arms. So I imagine they'll probably come down a little bit more vertically versus doing kind of as much of a horizontal translation.
Or do the translation above the top of the tower?
It's possible, yeah, depending on when they want to start the landing burn. So you kind of a finite amount of time to do some things given the landing burn timeline that they have. So yeah, they pretty much targeted like right in the middle of that green area from what I've seen.
So if you haven't already, check out Ryan Hansen's video over on YouTube, which you can access via X here under Ryan Hansen's X page. And while you're there, check out the rest of his work. It's pretty amazing sort of work there, Ryan. Really appreciate what you do there for the community with that kind of rendering. Okay, I think we pretty well covered the launch site as well now. I appreciate those comments there, Ryan. So if all failed and the landing burn is that 1 second later that didn't happen, the worst case scenario, we would have seen Booster 12 touchdown about here.
Yep, it would have pencil dived into the sand there, so area probably would have looked significantly different than it did the day after launch. So thankfully that didn't happen.
Absolutely. All right, Lawrence, we'll go on to some questions and donations again, please.
All right, I want to thank everybody for their support first off, and started with our very own Stephanie, who gifted $21, and then we had Oyvind, I hope I pronounced that right, with $19.10. Joaquin, $50. I want to thank Booster 1058 for becoming a RGV flight supporter. I want to thank our very own 55 Chevy guy, who's a regular around here, who has donated $5 and has a question. How would they have emptied the booster if the QD couldn't be connected after the catch?
I think they would just let everything boil out because they have a specific amount of methane that they can accept it to just let evaporate out from the booster.
Yeah, a majority of the liquid oxygen had pretty much boiled off by the time they got the booster back down onto the mount. So it was mainly just the methane they were trying to offload. But I think it was probably an unknown to them whether or not that was going to be able to be done. So it was maybe a bonus that they were able to get that the booster QD working so quickly and detank the remaining methane.
And so, just quickly on that, they did all that without any people going to the OLM, didn't they? They put the booster on by remote control and then hooked up the BQD and everything without anybody being actually at the site, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. You could see them with the arms making little micro adjustments, but they were presumably using a lot of the cameras down inside the ring, assuming they were working in order to get the booster, roughly centered so that they can deploy the arms and kind of clamp it down. So it was kind of speculated that they may or may not be able to do that, given the stabilizer or the alignment pins there at the base of the booster weren't actually on the mount because they take those off for launches, but they managed to do that, which I was a little surprised about, but it was definitely within the possibility to do that because I believe before they added those stabilizers, I think they had done it with, was it booster 4 or maybe booster 7? I think they had done it. Actually, booster 4 I don't think was ever lifted by the arms, so I think it was booster 7, the first few lifts, they might have done it without those stabilizers. So it's possible, but it's definitely not as easy as if you have those alignment pins down there.
Plus, with the bells not quite being pristine, I think they're less concerned about perhaps banging it on the side of the OLM on the way down.
Yes, exactly.
All right, and before I continue with questions, I believe Mauricio would like to jump in and say a few words.
Oh, yes. So great news. I already placed the order for the oxygen system. So we should be getting it on Wednesday, October 30th, which is great news. We're going to be trying out the new system by the next flyover, and I'll definitely keep you all posted on how that goes. But the pilot's excited. Seems kind of weird, right? We're excited to get oxygen to breathe. It's kind of hard to explain, I guess, the feeling of it's. I think it will help out a lot the exhaustion, the fatigue, the sluggish, being sluggish during the flight, and it's all because of the community. You all made this happen. We appreciate it. Me and the pilot and the team appreciate this. And yeah, the order's been placed. I believe I sent a picture over there in Patreon Lounge, Stephanie. But the order's been placed. The donations they will go towards. They went towards the oxygen system. They'll go towards also refueling. What is that called? Whenever you have to, when it's empty, refueling it up, right? That's the proper term for fueling up a tank that's empty.
Yeah, refilling.
Yeah, so it said here that each refill was like about $80, but that's on the website. They asked whether you wanted the tank empty or filled. The first one's going to be filled, according to what I see here. So moving forward, I guess we're just going to have to. I don't know how long this will last, each tank, but we'll keep you all posted, and that'll give us an idea of how often we have to refuel that. We have definitely more than enough funds to keep this going. With the refueling. We also have enough for the SD cards that we talked about. Those are little things that do make a big difference. Having reliable SD cards or hard drives to back up the stuff that each flyover is about 130 gigabytes. So in a month, we're reaching how much is that? Half a terabyte a month. So yeah, it's a lot of memory. But other than that, thank you so much. I can't say thank you so much more than enough. Thank you for the oxygen, and I'll pass this along back to Stephanie. Oh, and I do have some donations I want to go through. So Alex, one of our commentators, donated $100 donation. Thank you so much. He's here on the stream. I want to thank you personally here. Really appreciate that.
Anytime.
Yes, thank you. Oiven, $19 donation. Joaquim, $50 donation. And our very own Stephanie, $20 donation, all through PayPal. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. I'll pass this along back to Stephanie now.
Amazing effort, everybody. A mission accomplished. That was so good to see. And that will definitely help the pilot and Mauricio there to remain safe in the air and continue to bring those awesome photos to us. So yeah, well done once again. Thank you so much. Well, we're like, sorry, someone was going to talk.
Yeah, we still have some more questions. Do we want to go ahead and knock those out?
Yes, please.
All right, first one from Crane Man. Why don't they cover the fuel pipes under the launch ring since the insulation gets damaged every time?
I'm not sure they've ever even, I guess, touched those up between flights. They just kind of let it be. Yeah, I'm not sure why they may not cover them. I think they're talking about the ones maybe running underneath the ring. Yeah, can't really see them from the air, but I don't know. Maybe they're afraid of them, leaking and creating an explosion environment. I have a feeling that they'll be covered on the next launch mount, but I can't stress this enough that this first launch mount was more of a test stand than a launch mount. It was a test stand for boosters that they were still trying to design, but it was just in addition, it was capable of performing a launch, but so that it's very much kind of a version 1 of all of the hardware. So they might not know exactly what they wanted to do at the time, and yeah, as far as covering goes, they're relatively they're mainly just exposed to the heat, which is what chars the insulation over time. But at this point, I don't think they really care a whole lot about the insulation being charred. There's insulation within the tower that's also been charred, and it doesn't seem like they're in any hurry to address that. So I don't think it's a huge concern.
And to build on what Ryan was saying, the run's fairly small, so you're not losing that much. And on Pad West, they're going with vacuum jacketed pipes to sidestep the insulation charring.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, so next question from Crane Man. What changed to the launch since the paint on the OLM legs looks a lot better than after Flight 5?
I think it looks roughly the same as previous flights. I think maybe what kind of confuses people is that it starts to rust pretty quickly. And so if they don't paint the legs here within the next probably week or two, we're probably going to see a lot more rust develop on the legs than that we currently see. So it's maybe a little misleading. They certainly aren't taking the damage that they used to now that they have the water system that's sprays a significant amount of water down below, near the legs. But yeah, the paint, it's still getting damaged, and the metal is still going to rust, but it just hasn't yet.
All right, and next question is from Cumulus. Do you foresee the need for more cladding higher up on Tower A to prevent hot gas damage to internal plumbing higher up above the current cladding?
Well, we haven't seen any indication of work in that area, and these cladding's actually quite clean, the ones they added later on. If we saw some work inside to indicate there was damage, perhaps, but we haven't seen indication of actual damage, so probably not at this stage.
Yeah, by the time the booster gets close, it's down to 3 engines, and those 3 engines are producing, significantly less energy than the 33 at liftoff. So I I don't think that they're going to cause much damage. It's mainly just some of the heating that is going to over time build up, and you're going to see the difference in the paint, along the legs and the cladding itself. But we may see them add a couple more panels just, to be on the safe side, but I don't think that they'll add, significant amounts of cladding.
All right, and next question from Crane Man. Could the boosters be in need of a fire extinguisher system to put the flames in the engine bay out after catch, like in Flight 5, like we talked about in the show and tell?
They'll probably change the blade of material they're using on version 2 and later. I think the cork is just cheap and easy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I know at one point there was a time that Zach and I were joking about them lowering the booster down into the mount and then using the detonation suppression system to put out any flames that were down there. Um, I'm not sure how realistic that idea is, but it would be kind of funny if they managed to do something like that. If they ever got into a pinch where they felt that the flames were going to, cause a problem.
That would be interesting to see. Thank you, Lawrence.
All right, last was a statement from Kal-El. For $30, you can get an oxygen saturation thing you can put on your finger to see what your oxygen level is. Might be worth doing.
Yeah, we I'm on to here at home we have an oximeter. It's that can be Bluetooth to your phone as well. That's perhaps maybe slightly impeding to a pilot having it on their finger, but there are watch ones as well. The thing is with on your finger, you don't have to continuously wear them. You can just put them on and have a quick check, and really don't need to start checking till you get sort of above 6,000 feet, I guess. And you probably don't even need to use the oxygen until you sort of get above 6,000 feet. So I can see this all being very doable and very convenient and a very good way to manage the hypoxia that's obviously going on. So well done, Mauricio, for recognising it, and well done for reaching out to the community, and well done, community, for your amazing response. So that's really awesome. That's a job well done on everybody's side there, because without Mauricio expressing those things, we don't have any ideas. So well done, Mauricio, personally, for reaching out and expressing that to us all. And yeah, well done to the community for coming to the rescue. So yeah, I think an oximeter might be a good idea. Although generally, if you just wear the oxygen above 6,000 feet, you're generally going to be pretty right. But yeah, I would, if I was doing what they were doing, I'd definitely have an oximeter handy. You don't, like I say, you don't have to wear it the whole time. You can just check every half an hour or so, just to make sure the oxygen's doing the right thing, and to make sure you're, because sometimes hypoxia can be hard to when you experience hypoxia, it's not always obvious to the person suffering hypoxia that they're actually suffering hypoxia. It's kind of one of the dangers of hypoxia, is it's not always obvious when you're a pilot, especially. So with that, any more questions, Lawrence?
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Toby Wobie's son for a happy 16th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. Okay, with that, I'll first thank you, Lawrence, for doing questions and donations today in place of Joe. Thank you very much for doing that.
It was my pleasure, and thank you all for your support. And I know all of us here at the RGV team really appreciate everything this community does.
Absolutely. And thank you, Alex, also for your commentary today.
Thank you. Glad to be here, and hopefully you'll be back soon.
Absolutely. And Ryan, thank you very much for jumping in today as well, and some of your insights with some of your renders, and some of your information with your knowledge with you've gained by doing these renders. So thank you very much for that today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I know it's always fun to take a look at a bird's eye view here at Starbase and everything that goes on, and just again, thank the community for their support for sure. I know last night in the show and tell, it pretty much came up that hey, we might want to get Mauricio some oxygen, and very quickly, in the matter of less than 48 hours, we have equipment ordered. So it's a pretty big deal, to be able to continue doing these flyovers, and I know he will appreciate having the equipment on the next flight. So yeah, thanks again to the community for making that happen.
I just wanted to say
Okay.
a couple of things here before we jump off here. Um, yeah, I've never actually had oxygen, so anybody out there, just let me know. I mean, what is it? Does it have a particular taste, or like can you? Is it just you breathe a lot easier for the most part, or I've never had oxygen like at a hospital or anything like that, so that'll be interesting. So I'm looking forward to it. One last thing here. One of the first Patreon members that donated, Cumulus Granides, thank you so much. Kalisha Lee, thank you so much. Making sure those get thrown in there as well. Other than that, thank you so much for the donations, support, and yeah, I'll see you next week for the next flyover. Stephanie, you want to do the sign off?
Yep. Okay. So thanks to Emlyn for pushing the buttons and turning the knobs, and as our producer today. Thank you, obviously, to Mauricio for his amazing work at getting these amazing photos. Thank you, Jen, in the background, for doing the scheduling. And I guess that's it. How's that go? Most engines cut off. Love you. Bye.